Welcome inside the Broncos podcast studio for another episode of Altitude Advantage. I'm your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table, we have our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Eric Zalala. The Divisional Round is here, and the Broncos will host their first divisional home game since the 2015 season. It's going to be an exciting matchup against the Buffalo Bills. That time has been set for 2:30 p.m. Mountain Time, so Broncos country, make sure you guys get there early. It should be an exciting game, but this episode, we're going to break down the matchup, take a look at some key storylines, read some comments, and really dive into this rematch from the wild card from last season. So it's really exciting to be here in the divisional round. I remember we kept saying, like, it's just one more game, and now it really is to that point where we're in the playoffs. This is where it gets serious. We got our research packet, and there's only 8 teams on there. So it's exciting to be in this position. Really excited for Saturday.
Yeah, it's a high-stakes game, and that's exactly how you want it. Like you said, that's what you want this time of year. There's 4 teams left in the AFC jockeying for a spot in the Super Bowl, and the Broncos have as good a chance as any to make it there, and certainly hosting this game against the Buffalo Bills, it's not going to be easy. This is a really good football team the Broncos are going to see. Talked a little bit about it on Monday, but Josh Allen, obviously the reigning MVP, everything that he's able to do, his ability to extend plays, the toughness, he willed that Buffalo team to a win in Jacksonville last weekend, and Sean Payton mentioned it on Tuesday that was one of the biggest wins in a decade for this Bills team to go on the road for the first time since the early 90s and get a playoff win. They're going to be riding that momentum, that surge into Denver, and I think there's a lot of benefits of having the number 1 seed and having that first round bye and getting to rest up, and we'll talk about how the Bills are a little bit beat up, but one thing that you can see from wildcard teams is they can build momentum from one game to the next, and certainly a big road playoff win, the first of Josh Allen's career on the road, shows them that they can do that, and now they'll come to Denver looking to get another one, and it's the Broncos' job to be ready for that and to be ready to match that enthusiasm, match that excitement. Obviously, the Empower Field at Mile High crowd, I think, will help the Broncos do that, but as Sean Payton said, he talked about several myths. It's not just about playing at home, and it's not just about starting fast. There's a lot of things that go into this. And one thing that stood out to me that Sean Payton said is the Broncos have to play their best football. And it sounds simple, and it sounds easier than it is, right? To say you got to play your best football and then go out there and do it. But against a team like the Buffalo Bills that has all the talent and has the quarterback that makes a contender, right? And they've been in it every year the last few years, and they've been one of the last teams standing, a couple of AFC championship game appearances. They've gone toe-to-toe with the Kansas City Chiefs during their run to the Super Bowl several different times. And so this is as big a test as you can get. And, man, the Broncos, they have a big opportunity in front of them. And if they show up and they play well, they can get this done. But like Sean Payton said, it's going to take their best.
Yeah, head coach Sean Payton had also mentioned, all the little details, ball security, being good on third down, and obviously securing, not trying to be in those third and long situations. All the details that they harp on are going to be highly emphasized. He was like, because those small little things that maybe won't shift the game during the regular season could be the difference between winning and losing when it comes to the postseason. And I think this team is ready. I know Broncos country is ready. They've been waiting for this. I think back to when head coach Sean Payton said, I want the stadium to be loud because they want 2 more games here. Well, this is the first of potentially 2 games here at home for the Broncos as they make their way to Super Bowl 60. And I know Broncos country is excited. So let's check the pulse of Broncos country before we really dive in to this matchup and break it down.
Yeah, and a big thank you to Broncos country. A lot of comments here from our listeners on our most recent podcast on on YouTube. Find Altitude Advantage, comment. We'll read it here on the show. Leave a question. Hopefully we're keeping this going for several more weeks with game previews. So Sean Mahoney said, we wanted this rematch. We wanted this opposing QB. We want the disrespect. We're here to prove to the world why Denver is the best football city. This is our house. We'll talk a little bit about it. I don't know that I view it as like, and the players too, it wasn't necessarily like this is a rematch. We're getting revenge. Like that wasn't the sentiment I got in the locker room.
Yeah.
What I did get was like, we can learn from last year, and we'll talk about some of the ways they can learn from last year. But it wasn't like, and a couple of guys mentioned, hey, the sting of losing is still there.
Of course.
But I think that's true anytime your season comes to an end. It doesn't necessarily amp you up anymore for this game. I think the guys realize what's at stake with the number one seed, being 2 home wins away from a Super Bowl appearance, having that opportunity to host this game instead of being on the road. Those things certainly come into play, but I don't know that it's like we've got to get revenge on these guys. It's more like, hey, we've learned about what it takes maybe, and Cortland Sutton said we can watch the film of us against them, and kind of that can help. But I don't know that it's like a revenge mindset. It's more of just, hey, we can learn from last year.
Yeah, quick thing on that too, because you make a good point there, because Nick Bonito, when they asked him about that, he talked about his emotions after that game, and he's like, when I look back on it, my emotions wasn't necessarily about the loss itself. It was more of how proud I was of this team and how far we had gotten. And as you mentioned, learning from that game and now learning what it takes to win in the postseason and having that game here at home. But a lot of the guys really said, like, yeah, it's going to sit with me, but that Colts loss sits with them. That Chargers loss from earlier on this sits with them. They're competitors. So definitely agree with you on the whole sentiment of, like, not necessarily a revenge game, more like this is our chance and we're a different team from a year ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason Bonney says, last year, Bo Nix led a nice end-of-half drive to set up a game-tying field goal. Obviously, the Broncos missed that field goal. Mentioned that cannot be the case this Saturday. All 3 phases must contribute and do their job. That was something that Cortland Sutton mentioned on Tuesday of, hey, there were plays where you look at and you're like, man, we were right there. And then there were other plays where you're like, that's not what it's supposed to look like. And I do think there's an element of, yeah, everybody's got to play up to the moment. Everybody's got to, in the course of a 3-hour game, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have negative plays. It's about how you, I think, limit the extent of those negative plays and how negative they are, and then move on from them. And Sean Payton talks a lot about that next play mentality, moving on to the next play. That's important in a playoff game. But I do also think, like, I think about that game against Green Bay when the Broncos, especially the receivers, they made some, like, big-time catches. That's the sort of performance you need. You need these guys to play their best in the biggest moment, and that kind of goes back to what Sean said. And yeah, in the postseason, the mistakes do get magnified, and so you've got to be at your best, and you've got to avoid, especially the self-inflicted mistakes. Josh Allen's going to make some plays where it's like, this is why he's the reigning MVP. This is why he's one of the best players in the NFL. I think where you've got to be careful is don't make your own self-inflicted mistakes. Like, if they make a play, that's one thing, but don't put yourself in a spot where you're kind of regretting or ruining a preventable mistake.
Yeah, I agree. They asked Zach Allen. They're like, what makes Josh Allen so hard
on Allen.
I know. They're like, what makes him so hard to defend? And, like, with a little smirk on his face, he was like, well, he's 6'5", over 200 pounds. And then obviously he gave an answer, but he started with that. And it's like, yeah, you have to acknowledge the magnitude of the type of quarterback he is and what that does and the advantage that gives him. And we'll break that down in a sec.
Yeah. Another comment here from Talib904, Jags fan here. Unfortunately, we didn't win the game against Buffalo. It was very physical. Denver needs to be physical against Josh Allen. I do think the short week could play into Denver's, be a strength for Denver a little bit. The Bills have a lot of guys on their injury report. That was a physical game against Jacksonville, and I think that ultimately Josh Allen made enough plays, but I think the hope is that if you can hit Josh Allen and make everything difficult, and I think the other part of being physical is the run game. Like, we'll get to that. That's a huge key in this football game. But yeah, you've got the playoffs all year. We've seen the Broncos win at the line of scrimmage and in the fourth quarter kind of get to teams. Well, the Bills are almost as good as the Broncos in the fourth quarter. I think the Broncos have the second best point differential in the fourth quarter this year, and the Bills have the third. These are two teams that thrive late in games. It's going to be a game where you've got to try to wear the other team down, and we'll see how it is at the end. But yeah, I agree that the physicality of the postseason kind of goes without saying. And I think Zach Allen was also mentioning yesterday that last year in Buffalo, the Broncos kind of got a better sense of, hey, here's the physicality, here's the level that people play with in the postseason, and that helps. See, scanning some other comments. Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. The crowd at Mile High needs to be loud and the loudest we can be when the Bills huddle up. Do not let them hear. Make them jump off sides. Make them lose the game. Hype up the defense. That's a good point. Sean Payton emphasized that. He's talked about this several weeks in a row now, but the noise has to start when Josh Allen is standing there talking to the 10 other guys. And at the line of scrimmage, when you're making checks and all that, there are hand signals and there's you can go on a silent count, and it's not easy, but it's doable. When you're in the huddle and you're trying to give a play call to the guys, if they can't hear you, that makes things incredibly difficult. And so that's going to be a key element of this game that's the home field advantage is can you get loud enough when they're in the huddle? And if you were loud against the Chargers, if you were loud against the Packers, the Jags, be even louder. And it's about the timing. Sean Payton said you're not screaming for 3 hours, right? It's these 10-second intervals when they're in the huddle. And there's about 60, 65 plays typically for an offense in a game. 65 times for 10 seconds at a time, yell as loud as you possibly can, right? And that's what, about 10 minutes, right? If my math is right there.
I'm going to say
journalism major. But that's like 10 minutes of yelling. Everybody can do that.
Yeah.
Everyone can yell as loud as they possibly can for 10 minutes in these little short bursts, and it could make a big difference. Buddy Morgan saying only 2 teams with home field won this last weekend, and that does go to what Sean Payton also said, which is, hey, it's an advantage, but it doesn't guarantee anything. And he kind of pointed out these different postseason myths, and that was one of them, that home field advantage means you're going to win the football game. It can help you. I think there's benefits of not traveling across the country and not disrupting your routine. And especially I think a big element is for this, we talk about it impacting the Buffalo offense, but also I think the fact that Bo Nix and the Broncos offense don't have to go silent count, don't have to deal with the crowd noise that they had to deal with in Buffalo. That's significant. We'll talk about Bo's home splits. I think those are telling, but doesn't guarantee anything. Got to be ready to play. We'll just find a few more comments here. This one's kind of funny. Someone said, "You guys sound like very nice people, but I have 2 words: go Bills." Oh, infiltrated our podcast.
We are very nice people.
And we'll finish it here. This is Broncos 10. The Denver Broncos have what it takes to beat Buffalo. Not just saying that because I'm a diehard Broncos fan, but because we've seen this team come together and dominate on offense, defense, and special teams. We did not win 11 straight regular season games without putting in the necessary work. This playoff game is nothing different. We'll come prepared to battle and find a way to win. And I think that one of the reasons that stands out to me is that I think nationally, and surprise, surprise, the Broncos underdogs again.
What?
Even though the line, it seems like, is shifting a little bit. It's moving back and forth. But at the very least, like, the Broncos are not heavy favorites or anything at home. And to be
fair,
they
have an 8-1 record this season.
Yeah,
you know?
and to be fair, the Bills are a good football team, and they've got arguably the best quarterback in the league. Certainly, you could argue he's the most proven quarterback of anybody left in the field. And you mentioned this research notes packet that's like 15 pages long, and I think 14 of them are about all the things Josh Allen has done, right? And all the wins he has in the postseason and all the success he's, like, statistically, he's right up there with guys like Patrick Mahomes, Brett Favre, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. It doesn't have that Super Bowl appearance yet, but he's on the list with all these guys. But that said, I understand why nationally there's a lot of respect for the Bills, and they've done it in the postseason. They've proven it. I think they're thought of as this really strong team, and they are. But also, the Denver Broncos are being talked about as, are they one of the weaker 1 seeds? Are they up for this challenge? I think you're going to see this week a lot of people are going to pick the Buffalo Bills, and that comment we just read, I think it's a good reminder that, the Broncos have a still young team that's trying to prove themselves in the playoffs and get their first playoff win and all that. But they did win 11 consecutive games, and they did win 12. They had 12 come-from-behind wins, and they had 11 one-score wins. And they've proved themselves again and again this year. And if they beat the Bills, I think you'll start to see some of that respect come of, like, okay, now it's time to take them seriously. But But going into this game, I think Broncos fans should, and it doesn't guarantee a win. These playoff games are razor tight. I think you saw from this past weekend just how difficult it is to win a playoff game. But just what we've seen from the Broncos this year, like they've proven again and again that they can deliver in these big moments. And I'm excited to see them do it on a big stage because I do have belief that they can do this against a Buffalo team led by Josh Allen, that they can, I think a lot of it is last year the Bills won 31-7, and then the teams, the Bills still have the same quarterback, and the Broncos are still trying to prove what they can be, but man, here's a chance to prove it, and they've got all the talent, they've got all the ability. It's a well-coached team, like they can do this, and that's what makes Saturday so exciting. Is that you got another opportunity, and there's been a bunch of them. Got another opportunity to go prove people wrong and show what you can do.
The same sentiment continues to reign like all over. It's like, what are you afraid of? You're in the position to go out there on your home field, take on this team. And as you mentioned, it's another test, but they've been tested all season long, and the goalposts continue to be moved back of like, well, you're facing number one offense. Well, what if you beat this time? Well, you're not going to do this. Well, you're not. And like Broncos just keep doing it because their mindset and their mentality to stay focused is very, very disciplined for this team. And they're well aware of what Josh Allen can do. And Pat Surtain yesterday, when he spoke to the media, said, one of the things that I picked up, not only is his toughness, and he definitely showed that in the wild card game, but how he's able to lead his team. And we have to eliminate those second chance opportunities because he thrives off of that. And despite them not playing at home, that's the momentum that he needs to find a play where you're not supposed to find a play. And being able to really focus in on your assignments, Talanoa Hufanga spoke about that too, just eliminating those explosive plays and those second chance pushes that he makes by scrambling, getting out the pocket, extending plays with his legs. He's really where it starts. And I know there's a variety of different players on this team, and we'll get to how different players being hurt might affect the outcome, but Josh Allen has averaged the most total yards per game in playoff history. So it's like he knows how to find ways to connect with his receivers, and I think this defense is going to be up for the challenge of trying to create turnovers whenever they can, trying to create 3-and-outs whenever they can, field position, time of possession, all these things that they've really been dominating over the last few weeks is really going to need to come to light in this game to really get Josh Allen to, as you mentioned, he's going to make his plays, but to get Josh Allen to, unfortunately, just not be able to do what Josh Allen normally does.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen made some plays last year, obviously. He had a terrific game, and especially late, really turned it on. And there were some key moments, like there's a 4th-and-1 on Buffalo's first drive they go for, and they get. And then, they pick up some third downs. Their third down numbers were good, I believe. On their next drive, which put them up 10-7, I think they were 3 of 3 on third down. And Josh Allen, as a runner, is a big threat in those situations. But what the Broncos also did for most of the game is they were able to hold Buffalo to field goals. And until midway through, or actually really late in the third quarter, the Bills had just one touchdown, and they had a pair of red zone drives where they were held to field goals. And that's how we've heard Sean Payton talk about it again and again. That's how you win these football games, is those 4-point plays where instead of giving up 7, and that's also part of the reason why the Broncos lost to Jacksonville, was the Jags again and again scored touchdowns in the red zone. It was kind of an anomaly based on what we've seen from Denver's defense this year. But say Buffalo gets 4 or 5 red zone trips in this game, because they're going to be able to move the ball in all likelihood. Can you hold them to 2 touchdowns and 3 field goals or whatever, or get a 4th down stop on one of them? Or can you, even if it's just a couple of field goals, right? Or in a key moment early in the game, hold them to a field goal. Those plays matter because Josh Allen's going to find a way to move the football, make the plays. Yeah. They've got, even though they're banged up at wide receiver, still got good tight ends. They got the leading rusher in James Cook. They're going to make plays, but it's about the red zone. And can you hold Josh Allen down there? Because that's almost as good in some ways as I mean, obviously it's not as good as forcing a punt, but if you can hold these teams to field goals, and we've heard defenders on this team talk about that before of like, if we hold teams to field goals, we feel good.
Yeah. Alex Singleton had mentioned that VJ told him, like, well, if they score 5 field goals, how many points did you give up?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, that's kind of the idea. They're like, okay, yeah, that easy set it up.
And so that keeps you in the game. And then like you mentioned, I think you've got to prevent the signature play. And he's going to make, he's going to convert third downs. He's going to convert a couple fourth downs probably, like knowing how good this player is. Yeah. But like in the key moments, can you find a way to get the stop? And the signature moment last year was Josh Allen running around on 4th and 1 before finding Ty Johnson in the back of the end zone. And that made it 21-7, whereas if you're able to get a stop there, it's still 13-7. They went for 2 after that touchdown, so it's still 13-7. Yeah. You're still within a score on the road in your first playoff appearance. I mean, I think that score last year is a little bit misleading in terms of just the end result, right? Like it piled on a little bit late, but I think we mentioned things you can learn. I think for most of the game, the way that the defense played in terms of holding them to field goals was kind of what you're looking for. And then offensively, obviously, you've got to make the key plays in the critical moments. Cortland Sutton mentioned that you can't have the key drops, or you've got to convert on third down, and you got to hit on the big plays when they're there. We saw that on the first drive last year as Bo found Troy Franklin, but this red zone offense this year has been really strong at times, and then there's been times where it hasn't been as good. And Sean Payton mentioned after the Chiefs and Chargers games to end the year that they got to be better offensively in the red zone. The third down numbers have to be better on both sides of the ball. Like it sounds a little simple to some degree, but it's like third down, red zone, 2-minute turnovers. Like these games come down to, especially when you've got two really good teams in a playoff game, the little things make the difference. And I think back to some of these games this year that the Broncos won then against the Packers, against the Chiefs, when the Chiefs were still healthy and battling. Like it's a play here and a play there. It's, I think on that last drive against the Chiefs to set up it's either the last drive or the second to last drive, it's 3rd and 15, right? And Bo makes a terrific throw to Cortland Sutton to get a first down. You're looking at against the Chiefs in Arrowhead, you're backed up like 1st and 15, 1st and 20, something like that, and Bo delivers one down the left sideline. You're going against the Green Bay Packers, and you've got to make a play, and you make it. And then if you twist the knob the other way and you don't make that play, now maybe we're talking about, the Broncos can't quite close it out against Green Bay, right? And so there's one of the things that's fun and nerve-wracking about postseason football is it changes the narrative around a player, around a team, how you're remembered. Mm-hmm. Zach Allen said it after the Chargers game, like we've got 3 games to go potentially to change our lives. And it sounds dramatic, but like if the Broncos go out and win this game against the Bills, the conversation will be entirely different than if they fall short. And the truth is that it's not like not definitely going to be one way or it's not definitely going to be the other. There's a few plays here and there that are going to decide this football game, and we've seen again and again that the Broncos have made those plays this year, and they've found ways to in the crucial moments make those winning plays. They've got to find a way to do it again, and it won't be easy against Josh Allen. Again, just his ability to extend plays is and to kind of tie it back to what you're saying, his ability to extend plays is perhaps unmatched in the NFL, and the Broncos just have to try to avoid letting him make one of those back-breaking plays. And when you can, I don't know that you're going to force – and maybe the Broncos defense will show up and be in front of the home crowd and just dominate.
Yeah.
And to be fair, like you've added Talanoa Hufanga, you've added Dre Greenlaw. Sean Payton kind of alluded to – he was limited in practice on Tuesday, but Sean Payton kind of alluded to him being back. You added those 2 pieces who I think are a big deal, especially – Hufanga around the line of scrimmage, dealing with James Cook. The Bills like to run it outside, kind of get to that corner. Hufanga's been really good this year at stopping that. And so it is a different defense facing this Josh Allen offense. And so maybe you're able to find just a few plays here or there that can be different. And instead of a third down conversion, you force a punt. Or instead of allowing a touchdown, you force a field goal. Instead of allowing them to convert a fourth down, you hold. Like 1, 2, 3, 4 of these plays can make the difference. And the Broncos defensively believe they've got a different group this year that can make those plays.
I remember at the end of last year, or even during the offseason, we said, how does this defense get better? And then it got better, and I think this is exactly where you show that. And when you look at the playoff experience and look at the new guys that they brought in, and, Talanoa Hufanga is one of them, I asked him, how do you guys make sure that you guys start fast? And he's like, well, you just have to be prepared. And what I've been telling the younger guys, it's like, this does not come around as often. He's been blessed in his career to be able to be in the playoffs multiple times, but some guys don't ever get there. Some guys get there once and that's it. And that's why you have to go out there and play your snap, every snap like it's your last. And to your point, you're like, that sounds really dramatic, but that is the magnitude of where you are in the season and how far you've worked to get here. And you mentioned a lot of the guys after they won the AFC West, like it's the difference between saying like you look at that shirt and you're like, oh, what could have been that season? Or you look at that shirt and it's framed in your house next to a replica of the Lombardi. So it's those little things that you do have to mentally work through. And when you look at the experience that Bo got last year, he talked about that, just like obviously playing at home is better. But he says that last year's tough environment was a good road experience for him. And it was good for the whole team to go and get that experience, understand like how intense it was, how the verbal cadence you need to use, being able to talk, communicate. Obviously, it's going to be better at home, but he's happy that he was able to get that road experience last year. And then going into this game, he has a better idea of what to expect, but also you have that, I guess, quote unquote, comfort of being at home. How do you see Bo playing in his first divisional appearance? Or are you seeing him kind of handling that situation?
Yeah, I don't think Bo is different than many quarterbacks in that like playing at home is going to help, right? And that's not a knock on any quarterback. It's just when you're at home and you're comfortable and you're not dealing with that noise, things are just a tick, more comfortable for you, and that can make a big difference. And I do think having the playoff, having last year's start, knowing what it's like, knowing and Sean Payton said this on Tuesday, the preparation is almost more important. He said that experience is a little bit overrated in postseason games. That was another one of the myths he pointed out. But he did talk about the experience of the week in that it's at a different level, the preparation. That's helpful, I think, for Bo to know. And I know, nationally, Bo is not going to get the respect right now that Josh Allen is going to get. And to be fair, Josh Allen has accomplished a lot in this league. He's won an MVP. But, even a Drake May, a Caleb Williams, for whatever reason, people like to point out things that Bo isn't doing as well as opposed to things he is doing well. And when you look at him, what he is doing well is he's got more game-winning drives than anybody in the NFL this year, and he's tied for the most wins in NFL history through a player's first 2 seasons. And he is at his best in these clutch moments, and that's going to matter in this football game, and it's going to matter if the Broncos are going to make a run toward a Lombardi trophy because, man, looking at this last weekend, it was like every single game came down to the final 2 minutes, and it came down to could your quarterback make a play in a big moment? And it's a little bit of an oversimplification, but like the quarterbacks that made plays moved on, and the quarterbacks that couldn't quite make that same play did not. And, in that Buffalo game, Josh Allen leads a touchdown drive. Yeah. Next drive, Trevor Lawrence has to get those guys into field goal range and throws an interception. And so it's, can you be at your best in those big moments? And I think we've seen again and again that Bo has done that. One underrated element, the same, and I think they're different because Josh Allen will run like through people a little bit more maybe. And it feels like maybe he's shrugging guys off more. Bo's ability to run is like getting to space and his speed and his quickness. But that's a big element of this game. And I feel like we could see that in this game as a way for the Broncos to move the ball offensively. I think he led the team in rushing yards against the Chargers. He had some big runs in that game. I
remember the Texans when he was able to read the defense and then just go off for a big play as well.
Yeah, he finds ways to make plays, and it's not always pretty. And like sometimes it's like against the Packers, I think he had that one. He's running all the way to the right, and then he's running all the way to the left. And but he's just a gamer, and he finds ways to get it done.
You can't teach that. I think we have to emphasize you can't. That is natural instinct, and I was watching the broadcast for one of the games, and I heard them say, like, yeah, like his dad being a coach, like always drilled it into Nix's head, like, don't take the sack. Like, figure out how to either get some yards or throw the ball away. And we've seen him be so elusive and not find himself in a position where he hurts his team. And we've talked about through the course of the season of the fact that regardless of how the offense looks, Bo takes care of the football, and he makes sure that he doesn't have as many negative plays if he can help it. And I think that's going to be huge, especially when you're going against the Bills, pass defense and how they're able to kind of limit those explosive plays. He can find other ways to hurt you.
Yeah, he's had the fifth most carries among quarterbacks this year, and the Bills have allowed the most yards per carry to opposing quarterbacks this year. So maybe that's an area where the Broncos can gain a little bit of an edge. But he throws on the move as well. Obviously, he since 2024 ranks first in pass attempts, pass yards, first downs on the run, tied for second in pass touchdowns. Like, he wants to be mobile, and I think it's a strength of his. And Sean Payton mentioned, like, you don't want to rein that in too much or overcoach him because he's got a knack for making plays, like you said. And I think I tweeted it after the Packers game. If Bo Nix plays like that, right, and think back to that game where he's throwing touchdown, that dime in the corner of the end zone to Cortland Sutton. He's got the throw over the middle to Troy Franklin for a touchdown. He made a number of other plays. I think there was the one on the left sideline. He drops one in the bucket to Troy Franklin. If Bo Nix plays like that, there is nobody that you cannot beat, and that includes the Bills. That includes whoever would be in the AFC Championship. It includes whoever comes from the NFC. Like, if Bo Nix plays at that level, you can beat, and it doesn't mean you will, but you can beat any of these teams. And he doesn't have to play at that level like for 60 minutes. I'm sure, it'd be terrific if he does, but like every quarterback is going to have tough drives. But like, can you deliver in those big moments? We saw that he did against Green Bay, for example. We saw that he did against Kansas City here at home. We saw in Philadelphia that he did. And that was the game where Evan Ingram said, hey, that's where the belief started. And like, particularly for him, seeing Bo in those end of game scenarios of like, hey, we've got a guy back there that can get this done. And then you do it again, right, against the Jets in a key spot. And then you do it again when you come back from 19 down against the Giants and then the Texans. And then you grind one out against the Raiders. And then you do it against the Chiefs. And then the defense struggles against Washington and the offense picks you up. And then Green Bay, right? And eventually you just believe that, like, this is what's going to happen when that guy's back there. And I don't think that belief that the Broncos have in Bo Nix is all that different from the belief the Bills have in Josh Allen, right? Because their teammates have seen them do it. And Josh has done it maybe more on like a national stage and got the MVP honors. But what Bo has done in those key moments is not so different. Like, willing your team to a win has been really impressive. And so I do think Bo's ready for this moment. And obviously the playoffs are where you define your legacy as a quarterback. And man, wouldn't it be awesome after all the flack Bo has taken nationally at times this year of like, hey, he's whatever ranked quarterback, that he shows up in a big moment and makes the plays you need to win the game, and gets the Broncos a divisional round win and push them to the conference title. And the other key there is a run game would certainly help the Broncos and Bo Nix, right? Is like, this Bills team, we know they struggle against the run. The Broncos doesn't look like they're not going to have J.K. Dobbins, it seems. He has not been designated for return to practice as of when we're recording this podcast. So, like, can R.J. Harvey, can Jaleel McLaughlin, can they step up and help? Are you able to get Bo Nix involved in the QB run game? And then on the other side, stopping James Cook is just as important as anything on that Bills offense. They've got the number one rushing offense in the NFL. If you can try to make them at least somewhat one-dimensional, then you've got, a better shot. But if James Cook is running wild and then you're in these short yardage situations and Josh Allen can just kind of, play off play action or can take more chances down the field, then it gets really difficult. So this is, every week it's important, but this week in particular, the run game really matters in terms of, can the Broncos get something going on the ground to control the time of possession, keep Josh Allen off the field, put themselves in third and manageable, help Bo Nix, and then defensively, like, you've got to find a way, especially early, to set the tone against James Cook. And again, I think Talanoa Hufanga there, like I know we don't normally, on Broncos HQ, like an X factor.
Yeah.
Hufanga defensively in the run game, how close he plays to the line of scrimmage, how often he's coming up there to make plays. I think that's when we talk about this and like this defense versus Josh Allen, having Hufanga when you did not last year, that to me is like a huge, huge difference.
No, I agree. And you see it instantly. We've talked about it through the course of the season. You see a play, and next thing you know, you just see Huff like flying full speed, like just demolishing whoever's in front of him or at the line of scrimmage, whether it's getting a sack, stopping the run. He goes wherever he needs to be, and he always finds himself in the right position that he needs to be. And as one of the captains, as an all-pro safety, this year, he's talked about taking that responsibility, and sometimes he'll say like, "Oh, yeah, this was my fault as being in the backfield, being that last line of defense. Like I should have done better, and I need to do this." And so he's very much steps up when it comes to any kind of mistakes that you see on the defensive side. And you look at what the Jags did to the Bills last week. The Bills were held to a season low 79 rush yards and 3 yards per carry in the wild card. James Cook only had 15 carries for 46 yards. And 0 rushing touchdowns. Obviously, we saw what Josh Allen did. He had 2 rushing touchdowns in that game, but that ties back into that complementary football. Can you slow down James Cook and then take away that factor of what Josh Allen can do, especially in the red zone, I think is huge. And that this offense or this team believes in Bo Nix, but this offense believes in the defense as well. And one of my favorite clips from the season recap video that if you haven't seen, it's on our YouTube and our socials. There's a clip of Troy Franklin screaming out, I believe in our defense. I believe in them. They do it every week. And, he's on the sideline hyping up the crowd and hyping up his teammates. But it's true. They find ways to make plays. And I know that turnovers is going to be a key aspect of it. Josh Allen doesn't do a lot of them, especially in the postseason. But can you find that small weakness in his armor that you're like, let's exploit that. Let's get after him. Let's cause a fumble. Let's punch the ball out from James Cook and get good field position for our offense. And I think the defense is ready for it. And I think knowing how much they've gotten better this season and how the key pieces of Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga have really kind of added into it, and the way that Nick Bonito has stepped up even more this year, Zach Allen continues to be dominant. I think is going to be really key as you look to stop this offense.
Yeah, the turnovers, you're right. It's something the Bills don't really turn the ball over very much. And I think we mentioned Monday, it might be more about can the Broncos avoid turning the ball over compared to like forcing a bunch of turnovers. But they did get 2 a week or 2 weeks ago now against the Chargers, and maybe that's a sign of things to come. And certainly that turnover differential matters. And Sean Payton mentioned that leading into the postseason, and it still matters now. I think there's going to be an element of like, can you keep this game, or can you either build a lead or keep this game close going into the fourth quarter? And then the fourth quarter of a playoff game, you've just got to be ready for anything. And like you look at the games from last weekend, the Rams and Panthers each scored 14 points in the fourth quarter. The Bills and Jags each scored 14 points in the fourth quarter. It was 13-10 going into the fourth quarter, ends up being 27-24. The Niners are trailing going into the fourth quarter. It's 16-10. They score 13 in the fourth quarter, end up winning the football game. The Texans score 23 in the fourth quarter. The Bears score 25 in the fourth quarter to come back.
That sounds made up. Like it just sounds made up.
And so these games, like what you do in the first 3 quarters matters. And I think you hear that saying a lot, like you can't win the game in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, but you can lose the game. You can let it slip away, but you got to win the game in the fourth quarter. And, against Josh Allen, like you might have to score a couple touchdowns in the final frame, and you might be facing a late situation where, hey, you've got to go down the field and, think of that Giants situation, right? Like you come all the way back and then Jackson Dart scores and you've got 30 seconds or whatever it is to go down and score a field goal to win the game. You might be in another situation like that, or you might be the Denver defense that we've talked about and the pieces they've added. And hey, you're up a point or you're up a couple points late in the game. Can you get one stop?
Yeah.
And that's what makes the playoffs so exciting. And it's also what makes it so tough to preview because we don't know what's going to be the one or two plays here or there that we're talking about afterwards as the defining moments. You just hope that they're on your sides and you make those plays. But yeah, this team I think is ready for the challenge. The being at home matters. Having the experience and in just knowing what the week looks like, having the advantage, I think, of being relatively healthy while the Bills are dealing with a lot of guys who are beat up. You put Gabe Davis on IR. Another receiver goes on IR. You have, Ed Oliver gets designated for return. We'll see if he ends up playing. Got some other guys who are banged up there in Buffalo. And all year long, we've seen this team kind of wear teams down over the course of the fourth quarter. If there was a game where maybe you hope you're able to do that, is it this one where the Bills are coming in off a short week? They just played a physical game. Yeah. They just had this emotional win. Can you kind of wear them down? And again, the home crowd doesn't guarantee anything, but I think you can lean on them for the energy, the enthusiasm. And ultimately, and then at the end of the day, I feel like this is going to be a close game, an exciting game, one that in the final minutes we're still waiting to figure out who wins. And that's how you want it. And I do think in terms of playoff opponents, if you win this game at home, you're going to tell yourselves and tell everybody that, like, hey, there's nobody we can't get through, right? And so excited to see how this one plays out. It should be it'll be a great football game.
Yeah, and when you just look at, again, like this defense and the pressure they've been able to bring all season long, the Broncos had a 40.7% QB pressure rate, and the Bills allowed the fourth lowest QB pressure rate in the NFL. And so those are the kind of matchups that make me really excited, because I know that the players will give you more hype when they do break through that and they do make a play or they get a big sack on Josh Allen to either kick him out of field goal range or just to end a drive, force a punt, things like that. That's when your crowd gets into it. That's when you start building that internal momentum on the field, when you know that statistically, potentially, and I'm not saying that the players look at statistics, some of them do, some of them don't, but I'm saying, like, when you're able to break through some of those, that adds to the feel of, like, okay, things are going our way. Things are able to start stacking as you kind of go through the game. And I think the other part of that we've seen from this team is when things don't go their way and how they've been able to rebound from that. And we've talked about those growing pains, especially from a young team, and how that's important. And from last season, being so close and being on the other, like the flip side of losing those one possession games, and now this season it's flipped, and now you're winning those one possession games. And Talanoa Hufanga, when I spoke to him yesterday, said, like, yeah, we want to start fast, but you also have to finish. You can't just start fast and then fizzle out. You have to start fast and then finish strong. And you do that by making sure that you're on your assignment, talking to guys, communicating with guys, constantly being in motion in the huddle and things like that. And that's why this matchup is so exciting, because we know what the Bills can do, but we've also seen what the Broncos have done. And I think that is the biggest emphasis that this team can kind of hold on to as they go into this divisional round matchup.
Yeah, and it'll be a big test, right? And I think it comes down to ultimately, can you? It's an oversimplification to some degree, but can you slow Josh Allen, and can Bo Nix make plays? And there's a lot of other things that go into it: the run game and the home field advantage and the
being healthy thing that you said was big.
Yeah, being healthy. Like, there's all these elements, but also, like, I think you see in the postseason, the quarterbacks matter. And I've seen Bo Nix make plays in this season, this winning streak that the Broncos had for a long time. I've seen him make plays against top defenses, and the Packers, when they were playing the Broncos, had one of the best defenses in the NFL, and Bo Nix had a great afternoon. And the game against Kansas City in Denver had a great afternoon. I think, just so that we don't lie to our listeners.
Well, you were talking about the splits.
I know. I said we were going to mention those.
Page 16.
I know. Turn to page 374. Bo Nix at home, 14-3, 27.2 points per game, 250 pass yards per game, 7.2 yards per attempt, and 34 touchdowns. Those are good numbers. And he's had 17 games on the road, 17 games at home. Points per game are up about 6 points. Yards up about 50 yards per game. Pass yards per attempt up 1.5 yards. Pass touchdowns 14 more than on the road. So there are some good splits there, and you still got to go out and do it. And I think that after all, we've talked a lot the last few weeks, and really since the Chiefs game, where it was like, hey, the Broncos control their own destiny, and they're in this position where you win 2 and you get the 1 seed, and then it's okay, you win 1 and you get the 1 seed, and now we're waiting to see who we play, and then we know who we're going to play but not win, and now we know, like, talking, finally getting close to the point where, hey, it's time to play a football game. It feels like forever since we watched the Broncos play a football game, and man, I'm excited to see it.
I'm excited to see it too. And as we close out, as you were reading the home splits of Bo Nix, I mean, just what Courtland Sutton has been able to do on 3rd and 4th down this season has been impressive. He led the NFL with 507 receiving yards on 3rd and 4th down in 2025. When you have a guy like that you can rely on, that also adds another layer of what this team is capable of if you're put in those positions where you have to go for it on 4th down, where you have to go for it on 3rd down. You have that Bo Nix, Courtland Sutton connection that has been special really all season long, and I think it's going to be showcased even more on Saturday.
Love it. Cannot wait.
Well, we can't wait for you, Broncos country. Again, a reminder, the game will be on Saturday with a kickoff time of 2:30 p.m. Mountain Time. As you've heard head coach Sean Payton say, you need to be loud as they're in the huddle. Make sure you disrupt their huddles. Make sure you guys get there early. Be loud. Be exciting. This is the first home playoff game in a decade, and we know that Broncos country will be ready. And we're happy that you listened to another episode of Altitude Advantage as we get you ready. And make sure you guys stay on the lookout for another episode of Broncos HQ, where I also break down the matchup with our Hall of Famer, Steve Atwater. So once again, thank you so much for listening. Continue to leave those comments. And Broncos country, we cannot wait to see you and hear you on Saturday.